I know that's gotten a lot of attention. I'm an offensive guy, but I don't mind that aggressive nature. I think if I were on offense, if I were Kirk Cousins, I'd be happy that that's my defense, and I'd be happy that those guys are kind of getting right to the line. I'm not a big fan of grabbing a guy's helmet and twisting his head off. Obviously, I think that's crossing the line. But as far as just their mentality and the way they play, I think it's if you're a defensive guy or if that's your team, you gotta love that.
Kirk, what are your thoughts on all the conference jumping as far as it
Not a
relates
fan.
to your love of the game and its future?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it at all. I'm kind of a traditionalist. I like the Big Ten being the Big Ten, and I like the SEC being the SEC. I'm one of these guys that sits around during the bowl games and watches the most generic bowl games because I'm watching the conference bragging rights that are on the line each week. And I just cannot think about Boise State being in the Big East or Air Force being in the Big East. I mean, how does that make any sense? Thankfully, the Pac-12 said thanks but no thanks to Oklahoma and Texas, so we kind of settled down to a certain extent, out west anyway. But I hope this whole thing kind of moves on. I'm not a big fan of this future 4 or 5 super conferences. I don't think that's really good for our sport. Well, it's huge, and I think the reason is because Kirk Cousins, I think, touched on this when he said that I can walk the rest of my life out on the streets with my head held up high, and I think that just kind of speaks volumes, especially in this particular rivalry, where the whole big brother, little brother thing that Mike Hart created about 4 years ago, from the time he's opened his mouth to today, Michigan State has not lost to Michigan, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I can remember Mark D'Antonio, after Mike Hart made those comments, he was very emotional about how disrespected he felt and his program felt, and he's basically saying, we're drawing a line in the sand, and that's no more of that attitude. And they've won 4 in a row. So it's not just beating your rivalry, it's the timing of the comments from Mike Hart and what's happened since then. And, after 3 in a row, Brady Hoke comes in, and you're like, okay, now we'll see. And it's like, bang, take another one. I mean, to me, 20, 30, 40 years from now, you're always going to respect this rivalry, but you're going to remember this era if you're a Michigan State fan. And if you're a guy like Kirk Cousins, who was involved with 3 of them, I mean, every time you come back for homecoming, you're pretty happy.